Okay, hello year 5 and 6. So yesterday we started looking at our local area, so really bringing it down to where we live and the environment that we're in all of the time, but actually unpicking what wildlife are we able to see there. And often it's quite easy to think that in a big city or in a city there is limited wildlife. Okay, and what we need to do is actually have a look at what is there and how we can classify that. So yesterday you created a couple of pages um, of basically setting up to show us what you could see in our local area. Now, today what I want to do is to continue that, and I'd like to have these 2 pages, or however many pages you've done it over, as an ongoing thing where if you're out, or when you're out for your daily exercise, it's really important that you're adding to this. Okay, once you see something, if you go to somewhere different, you might find a different species that you've not seen before. Now, I also want to think about some of these species you're not going to be able to see. Okay, you're not going to be able to see some of the species that are in the River Exe, for example. That doesn't mean they're not there, and I'm going to show you a website today where you can start to find some of the species that we've got here in Devon, okay, and you can start grouping those into your different classification groups, and then I'd like you to think about which of those you have seen. So the Devon Wildlife Trust website, okay, and there are 3 pages that are of interest to you really. In the city, okay, this species page is really important, and Exeter Wild City. So on the website, if you just type in Devon Wildlife Trust, okay, it will bring you onto here, okay. So Devon Wildlife Trust, then you can go into Exeter, so the main website, okay, looks like this, and there's lots of different things on there, so it's a really good website to explore, have a think about in there. So then you can come into these different places, okay, wildlife in Devon, okay, there are also some webcams on there of some of the different wildlife that you can see, and then it lets you go to these different places, so in the woods, okay, on the moors, on the river, in the city, and that's a really good one for you guys obviously living in Exeter. So it gives you a bit of an overview of what is in Exeter, okay, and there are lots of different things you can see through there, and you can follow some of the links through on these pages to look at some of the different species that you might be able to find in the city. Now, the other page that I want you to have a look at is if you go to wildlife and then species finder, okay, you can either enter the name of species to find some information about it, or you can then look through in different groups, okay. So you should know a lot of different ones within here, but if we look into invertebrates, it then opens up more options for you, and this will help you to see some of the wildlife that you may find around your gardens or on your daily exercise, and will enable you to classify them even further, okay. So rather than just writing butterfly, you'll be able to look in and see which butterfly it is that you've been seeing on your daily walk. So hopefully we'll have lots more details to your work now. Yesterday I told you that there was a crustacean that you could find, okay, and here is the white-clawed crayfish, okay. Now there is also another type of crayfish that you will be able to see, and unfortunately you'll be able to see a lot more of this crayfish here, okay, the signal crayfish, than you will our native species of crayfish, because unfortunately this non-native, so an invasive species, has started to dominate and take over the waterways in the UK. But they are, although the white-clawed crayfish can be quite rare, crayfish in general, within the River Exe in particular, there are actually an awful lot of those in there. So the Devon Wildlife Trust is a website I'd like you to explore today, and I would like you to use the information you find to complete or continue to add to. You're not going to complete it because you might see some of those things, but what I'd like you to do is to create a key to show which animals that you've seen. So make it really clear to us which ones you're seeing. Maybe that's a different colour, or maybe that's that you're underlining the ones that you have seen, maybe highlighting them once, so writing them in and then highlighting the ones that you've seen on your daily walk, out of your window, in your garden, wherever that might be. But there are lots of opportunities for you to see different parts of wildlife, and you'll be amazed at how much you find when you actually go out looking for it. Things that you don't normally notice, but if you go for your walk today, really think about that wildlife that you're seeing, and you will be surprised at what you can see within your local area. So as a reflection, something I'd like you to just start thinking about is how you could change your local environment to increase the number of wildlife that live there. So either think about, if you've got a garden, what could you do there, or in school. Okay, some of the children that have been coming into schools, their parents are key workers, have started to think about some of these areas and think about how we can utilise our space better to support the wildlife. So your ideas would be welcomed, and when we hopefully get back to school, then maybe we can start putting some of those things into practice, and you can start to develop those areas within the school. So I really look forward to seeing some pictures of your wildlife walks, your spotting wildlife within the garden, okay, and also of some of your ideas of how you could increase the number of wildlife within them. So have a great weekend, and I will speak to you next week.